Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling. I shall see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today, because it has been a little bit of time since I last played Animal Crossing. Probably not from your perspective. In your perspective, you had, of course, those lovely recorded, pre-recorded episodes in Happy Home Paradise where I did some designs. I'll warn you now, today I'm not going to do Happy Home Paradise design. I'm just, I'm not feeling up for it, It takes a lot of brain power and creative juices flowing. Right now, I just want to sort of vibe. I want to chill. I want to just play a bit of Animal Crossing, see how my island is doing, and then maybe tomorrow or the day after we'll get back into swing of doing some Happy Home Paradise customizations. But of course, I'm back with my holiday. It was a rather lovely holiday, thank you very much. And we'll just sort of get right to it. So hello there everyone. Right now in Fawnhollow, it's 3:37 PM on Thursday, December 9th, 2021. Now for today's announcements. Today we have a visitor staying at the campsite. Go meet our guest in person, etc, etc. I didn't actually play any New Horizons in the days between the 3rd and 8th, I think, were pre-recorded days, something like that. So of course we've got the 9th today, and other things probably have happened since then. But yeah, it was pretty nice. I went to a nice sort of place. We had a lot of lovely food. Happy Home Academy, getting rid of this stuff because we don't need it. Jolly Red, I don't remember if you gave us anything interesting, Apollo. Hello, Mountain. Came across this rarity somewhere. I figured I'd treat you to a gift that you weren't expecting. So well past time, and thank you for all you do. Or in here you say you won't take us, so let me know what you think. Later, Gator, Apollo. Fantastic timing, Apollo, because I believe the first episode of Later Alligator, in fact, did just come up. A motherly statue. If I recall, I think this is a fake one because it had its tongue sticking out or something. Let me just look at it. Let me just look. Is that a tongue? Is that a tongue spy? Yeah, anyway, so I'm back from holiday. It was indeed overseas to a lovely little island called Madeira in Portugal. If you want to know, I don't really know too much about Madeira, to be honest, in the first place, but after visiting it, it's a very lovely place. We had a lot of hello, whatever you say, a long time no see. I've been so bored lately, but I took up learning languages for an afternoon. It was pretty good. We talked to all already just because we haven't probably spoken to them for ages. Oh, really, is you? For a second, but I didn't even recognise you. It's been that long. I was just thinking about you the other day, wondering what you're getting up to. Oh, I was in Madeira. I'm just glad to see you're still here on Fawnhollow, and I'm hyped to see what you do next. Dear, where have you been for the last 1 week? Everyone's been worried about where you were. I'm happy to see you again. You should go say hi to everybody, then we can hang out. Absolutely is what I'm doing. Yeah, so it was just a holiday, because it's been a long time since it's been a holiday, and I suppose luckily we kind of seem to avoid the major wave of the pandemic situation reoccurring again, which is just like we decided to chat. I didn't mean to click that. It was a decision being like, should we do this, should we not do this, and then we was just like, okay, we'll do it anyway, and we'll see. It was okay. It's very weird, I will say, certainly, to see the airports be so empty in these sort of days. I haven't been to an airport in probably about 3 years now, because not really much of an opportunity to travel nowadays. But don't worry, been vaccinated, been tested, and all that sort of thing. Currently was self-isolating, waiting for test results to come back, following all standard procedures. Don't you worry. I'm very much in favour of vaccines and medication and modern medicine, so rest assured with that. But yeah, sorry about that, it was quite a long pause, but so much so that I don't exactly recall what I was talking about, but what am I even doing? What missions do we have? That's always a good place to look. My volume is up a little bit too high. I can't see the top left one because my volume indicator's in the way. I see. So we need to catch bugs, deep sea creatures, chop wood, and go say hi to Brewster, which we were going to do anyway. Of course, we're going to just walk around and go say hi to all our villagers who we haven't seen in a while. Yeah, I know, and obviously it's been a very long time since going anywhere. Did I learn much Portuguese on the trip? No, unsurprisingly, I suppose. All I remember is thank you, which is obrigado. And I was never particularly adept at Spanish. Back in school we had to learn it, and particularly because I also could not roll my R's. Whoa, I think it worked. Hey Mountain, I've been training my brain muscles for this thing called telepathy. It's for strong minds only. I started thinking really, really hard about you, and here you are. So how have you been? I've been fantastic, just off on holiday. It's one of the things whenever you, not you, I mean, whenever I suppose go on holiday, I'm much more conscious about when I go to a place which is not an English-speaking country, or well, maybe I shouldn't say English-speaking, or go to a country where I cannot speak the language of the locals. And you know, obviously it's kind of like a given, because there's like huge amounts of languages in the world. It's a little bit much to expect someone to learn every single language of the world, and you know, you can't really expect everyone to be a polyglot. In fact, very few people are in the first place, and I am not one of them. But it does always make me feel a little bit bad when I go there and be like, oh, I wish, you know, I could actually speak this language. Oh, but isn't it? It's been a while. Are those new clothes? They really show off your biceps there. And I'm not sure if I'd put it quite on the same level as guilt. I mean, maybe when I was younger, I'd feel a lot more guilty about to be like, oh, you know, I can't believe this. I can't believe I'm just, you know, visiting as a tourist and I don't know the entire language. It's obviously very unreasonable and kind of stupid. You know, tourism, as long as you are respectable, can obviously be good for the economy and good for business and that sort of thing. So, you know, it's like a give and take of that sort of things. And obviously, what you should always try and aim to be is a good tourist. And respectful of, you know, local customs. Oh, it's Poppy, you're adorable. Hi there, do you live here? You're so lucky, I'm just visiting, Nutty. I'm Poppy, by the way. The place is so mellow and laid back, but I can tell I'm already going to go home here feeling restored. You are adorable, but unfortunately we cannot invite you to your island because you are not fauna. I mean, we could replace Tank, but, you know, I mean, Tank's not doing anything wrong. Or actually, if we do replace Tank... Oh, but, you know, the bigger problem is I had to constantly keep resetting to get Poppy to select Tank, and that sounds boring, so I'm not going to do that. Who's our visitor? We don't know who our visitor is. Isabel didn't announce it. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's... I never really know how to think if it's respectful or not respectful necessarily, but like what people think of as like a foreign person obviously visiting a country, and I learned just like a handful of much more generally used phrases, like I suppose to mirror like first time, well actually maybe it's not quite mirror, but like you know, if you go to France you'd be like, you know, merci, you know, bonjour, that sort of thing, s'il vous plaît, excusez-moi, and those sort of generic French phrases. I wonder if it feels what other people necessarily think when a foreign person comes as a tourist. Fabu, I was just wondering when I'd see you again. I've been clipping coupons, but that was starting to get boring. Oh, Lily. When we come as a tourist and just, you know, being able to only regurgitate a handful of phrases, obviously not pronounced particularly well, and not necessarily knowing the context particularly they're used in, whether it's a cool thing or a bad thing. Because, you know, from my perspective, if I see someone, you know, as a tourist and they come to this country and, you know, they might not talk perfect English and might barely have very little knowledge, I suppose, of English in the first place, and they, you know, try and talk to me, being like, trying to ask me like where something is or something, I think awesome, you know, then mad respect would try to do it in a language that you can't even speak or don't even know, or even if you bust out some certain phrases, because you know there's been Chinese tourists here and then obviously yeah, I do look Chinese, so I had to give directions here and then. I remember one of the times we were on a school trip or something, we were like in London, we were doing like a treasure hunt or something, and then like saw some Chinese tourists. They were outside, I can't remember, like St. Paul's Cathedral or something, because I don't remember what we were doing, and I was just like talking to my friends like, oh yeah, some like Chinese tourists, and they're talking, and they, you know, came up to me, and like one of them just like asked us for directions. We asked in English, and they asked in English, and I, of course, we gave them instructions being like, oh yeah, the entrance just around that way, just walk around there and you'll find it. And they were like, thank you. And then they walked away, and I was like, you know, awesome that they tried speaking in English, and you know, honestly, the person's English was pretty good. So this is probably not a very good example, but then I thought, I wonder if I should have responded in Chinese or not. If anything, that's sort of like turning on its head. Like my Chinese is not amazingly fluent. It's probably passable, is what I'd say. Like it's understandable. I could go live in China and be okay, I think. I'd be able to live on my own through my understanding, but it's not particularly great, and I'm not going to pretend and flaunt like it is. But I'm like, you know, if that happens and I can kind of speak that language, is it better for me to speak? Should I have responded? And of course, in fact, I was much more socially anxious about that sort of thing, so the answer from me back then would be absolutely not. But you know, nowadays I'd probably, you know, just give it a shot. But to be honest, that was a bit relevant, because that woman's English was actually very good, especially obviously not fluent or anything, but I can understand her and she can understand us, and that's kind of all you really need for communication in the first place. So I always wonder what it's like from the other perspective, like in a non-English speaking country. I'm sorry, I completely didn't read out what you were saying, Amina, because I'm on a conversational train now. What it's like for me as a English, a little bit Chinese, a little bit Japanese speaker going to their country and just basically regurgitating very basic phrases and that sort of thing. Do they think like cool, or be like roll eyes tourist? I guess it kind of depends on the person. It's more of a reflection of who you are as a person, as a tourist, not necessarily even how you approach them trying to speak a language and that sort of thing. But I think the general consensus is if you give it an attempt, if you're like attempting to learn the language, even to a basic conversational skill, I think most people are like awesome. At least that's what I think when I hear someone who is not Chinese and like I hear them speak Chinese and learn a little bit of Chinese. I'm just like, wow, cool, awesome. Or even if they are Chinese, I suppose. And if they're just learning a little bit Chinese, I'm like, oh, yeah, speak. Let's do it. Even my Chinese, of course, isn't that great. I don't know. I suppose, humans are social creatures. Hearing it builds us a mini sense of community. A bonding experience in certain ways. Almost immediately. So that's why it's kind of fun. Like, I went to Japan, a couple of times. I talk about this all the time because, I've really been on so many holidays. No, that's true. I've been on quite a few, but the Japanese ones tend to be most memorable because that's the first time I went for 3 weeks, and the second time I went for quite a while as well, maybe about a week or so. But of course, at the time, I was learning Japanese in university, and I studied it kind of like part-time, quote, for 3 years. Is perhaps how I phrase it? I'm not really sure if that's the best way to phrase it, but so yeah, my Japanese is, well, at its peak was, I would say, is conversational. Now it's probably like brokenly conversational, but I could navigate okay. my understanding's pretty good, At least when I listen to Japanese songs, I can at least understand them. But that's, to be fair, like all these idol songs I listen to, I always have the same phrases like kiseki and yume, those being a miracle and dream, respectively. Like similar words tend to crop up quite a lot, unsurprisingly. Hikari, light. Anyway, that's not the point. Why was I going with this? I forgot. But it seemed like all of the Japanese locals were pretty jazzed, when I tried to speak with them in Japanese. I mean, I'm not sure if particularly they thought I was Japanese, because, when you go into a restaurant, I remember one time we went to a restaurant, it was this, like, side street cafe, the first time I went with me and my friend Ali, and I walked in, and then we were just like, how many people in there, and I was just like, Futari desu, which I think is, if I recall, that's how you're meant to say, number of people. That's just a politeness indicator, I suppose. And then they were like, and then they responded and they asked something again in Japanese, but it was like really quick, as if, they were like talking to someone who was actually fluent in Japanese. I just went, what did you say? I was like, mo ichido onegai shimasu. And she was like, oh, you're a tourist. Not like a rude way, like you're a tourist, but like a, mistaken. Turns out she asked, do I smoke and did I want to sit in a smoking or non-smoking area, which I can't remember what that is now off the top of my head. It starts with K. It's like Kincho? No, I think that's scared. Hold on. This is where you bust out helpful Google Translate, because Google Translate, not great for constructing grammar and sentences, fantastic for vocab, I think, in a certain degree. It's not going to give you context necessarily behind word, and sometimes it gives you wrong word, but if you just need to translate, need to get the gist of a foreign word into your own local language, it's pretty decent. So smoking, kitsuen, that's it. She asked if I wanted to have sit in the smoking area, and I was like, what? But it always made me feel really bad, because I try and keep it in Japanese as much as possible, because I think it's a little bit much well, not a little bit much, it's obviously quite stupid to go to a place and expect everyone to speak your language. And certainly I have a little bit of English speaking privilege, not a little bit, it's quite a privilege, to go to a lot of places, and English is quite commonly spoken by a lot of people, even to a very, very basic degree, which is lucky, to say the least. That I'm someone who's born, as English as my first language, maybe, even without Chinese. I'm not really sure which counts as my first language I learned, but the technicalities that don't really matter all too much. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to start with step and we're going to head over to Cap'n Island, I think. I want to clear out my inventory first, and then we'll head over to Photopia. Yeah, so it's quite a privilege being able to travel and speak in English and have, like, if it's like a largely touristy area, all the people, all the staff there will probably be able to speak English pretty damn well, which as always is awesome. But it always makes me feel bad. Especially because, you know, it's quite a bold not a bold assumption, but, you know, I'm not sure if it's rude per se, but it feels like it makes me feel bad when I'm like, oh, you know, I can't speak your language, and I apologize. And then, you know, if I don't understand something when I'm trying to speak with them in Japanese, and they have to respond in English, and if they're not someone who often gets much practice for English, you know, it's nerve-wracking speaking a language you don't know fluently. I say from my experience. Oh, we didn't even get enough seashells. I say from my own experience, of course. So I remember talking to that girl in a cafe, waitress, and she just sort of like froze when I spoke in English, and then she just very nervously, well, in my mind it was quite nervously, perhaps I wasn't as nervous as she was, because, you know, she was just sort of trying to, like, remember the English word you went smoking, or something like that, and, you know, I just felt terrible, to be honest. I was just, oh man, you know, if only I paid a bit more attention in Japanese class, maybe I could have remembered the word for smoking. To be fair, I don't even know if we were taught the word for smoking or not. And I could have responded, and, you know, wouldn't have to put you in such an awkward position, because it's awkward trying to speak a language you barely know. Like, I was trying to think of most comparison is, you know, a lot of people, English, you know, foreign language education is reasonably common, at least in non-English speaking countries, that a lot of students will learn to speak English even at, like, a basic conversational level, but, you know, having to, like, sort of re-summon that again whenever tourists come by is probably, like, gets your heart racing if that's not really what you expect to do in your duties. And I always think in a comparison sense being like, what if I had to, like, suddenly speak French or something? I'd be like, je suis désolé, mon français est mal. I can't even remember. You know, it just makes me feel kind of bad about the situation. Not bad enough, I'm just like, oh, I'm the worst person in existence about something. But just be like, damn, I kind of wish, you know, I could understand every language in the world. You know, I feel like a lot of people would, you know, love to be able to learn every language. And we're just like, oh, no, just for, not even just for, like, communication purposes, just for fun, I suppose. Educational purposes in a certain sense, and I'm definitely one of them. We don't need gyros anymore, so I don't know why I continuously do this, but we'll pick them up anyway. But, you know, I remember I talked to someone in Disneyland, like, the second time I went to Japan, and I was speaking Japanese, and then I suppose they could tell that I was not fluent, like, partway through the conversation, and they were just like, oh, you... I remember they asked me stuff in Japanese, and I did my best to respond, because, you know, I was kind of like mild panic, because I was like, I didn't expect to have much more of a conversation outside of, like, do you want a bag of this, or how much does this cost, etc, or the price is that, and whatever. And I remember he was asking things like, oh, are you, like, studying in Japan? And I was like, oh no, I'm just a tourist, but I did study Japan back in England, where I'm from, you know, I went to some Japanese class and that sort of thing. And I remember he ended the conversation in English, because, you know, his English is about 1,000,000 times better than my Japanese. He was like, I really hope you continue to practice and learn Japanese. It's really awesome. Like, I can't remember exact words, but it was along those sort of phrases where he was like, I really hope you, it was really sweet. He was like, I really hope you continue learning. I think it's really cool that you're in Japanese. I just went, that's so sweet. And of course, you know, I didn't know how to respond properly in Japanese. Oh, hello, Gulliver. Or whatever, but, you know, I was very thankful. It was just like, you know, that's awesome. You know, I learned Japanese just for, like, kind of fun, you know, just like start university, being like, oh, I wanna do some, like, extracurricular things not related to my course, what sort of things can I do? And, you know, I signed up for some sports and signed up for some other activities, and one of them I just did was like, oh, a foreign language, you know, always wanted to learn, like, another language. What language should I learn? Well, I narrowed it down to French, Japanese, and Spanish, I think. But I was like, I didn't really like Spanish. Or I imagine, you know, done a bit in French GCSE, and Japanese just seems like a good sort of, like, jumping off point. You know, I play a lot of Japanese games. I don't really watch that much anime, but I watch some anime. And enjoy it. And, you know, I already know a decent amount of Chinese, so that sort of the overlap there could help out more than it hinders, hopefully. So it just seems like a good choice. And, you know, just I suppose it paid off on that one Disneyland staff member exchange. Of course, you know, Disneyland crew members or staff members are not going to exactly be like horrible people. You don't expect them to be like fed up with well, I mean, they probably would be fed up with tourists quite often, but like, you know, they're not like in some rural town where we don't expect tourists. You kind of, when you sign up for a job, you kind of expect everyone to basically be, not everyone necessarily, but a large majority of the consumers of a place to be a tourist in the first place. So, you know, I wonder if you actually have to be able to speak English to get a job over there. 'Cause I remember I asked another Disneyland crew member, but like, I talked to a few, of course, over the trip, trying to get like directions on one sort of thing. I remember I talked to this one older woman. She was like 50-ish, maybe 60-ish. I'm not really sure. And I asked her whether bathroom was in Japanese, and then she replied in English. That was a little bit soul crushing at the time, I will say, at the moment. But that was on the first time I visited, so to be fair, that was probably when my Japanese wasn't the best, and I had some like basic understanding. Compared to the second time where it was considerably better. But yeah, but she replied in, I was like, sumimasen, toilet wa doko desu ka? Which is like, excuse me, where's the toilet? And she was like, oh yeah, it's over there on the right. And obviously she was just doing it out of like convenience sake. She wasn't going to be like, oh, you know, as tourists speaking Japanese and completely butchering my language, I'm going to respond in English to show them what's what. And that's obviously not what she was thinking. She was like, oh, this person's probably English, I'm going to respond in English to help make sure I get the point across clearly. By the time I was like, oh, it feels bad. But to be fair, she responded in Japanese. I probably wouldn't be able to understand the directions because we hadn't covered directions by that point in our Japanese lessons. I'm not even sure I can remember them very well right now. It's like Hidari is left and Migi is right, I think. Ooh, hello lobster. We should actually keep this lobster because if I recall, there are certain recipes which require things like lobster to actually cook in first place. Yeah, there's another crew member, you know, I spoke to in English, and his English wasn't like perfect or anything, but he got the point across. Because, you know, a lot of communication, you don't really need to actually speak in full sentence or have language. A lot of, you know, context is quite communicatable through just actions, I suppose. Alone. Like one of them, I can't remember. It was like, I was looking at, but they have like these mini like sort of like travel guides or something for Disneyland at the gates, which you can pick up and they show you what's going on, like special events. Or what's new going on in that month in Disneyland. And one of them was like, okay, we're trying to find for some like place to get like dinner in Disney Sea or Disneyland. I can't honestly remember. And then we were just trying to find it, and then like a crew member came up to us and be like, I can't remember exactly, but we just asked like, where can we get this thing? And, you know, you pointed it out to us on the map. We didn't really exchange many words. I just remember pointing at the food ads and being like, what did I say? Like, koko wa doko desu ka? Probably something like that. You know, you understood, you know? You don't even need to speak the same language to be, I'm not going to say effectively communicate. It's obviously going to take more time than communicate. Who have we not spoken to? We haven't seen Vivian. Was Vivian home? It's obviously going to take much more time and a little bit more effort than communicating both of you speaking the same language. Oh, we haven't seen Vivian. I don't know. I suppose we'll speak to her on a different day. We need to actually head over to Harv's Island, otherwise we're going to run out of time. I forgot what I was saying. I can't remember what I was saying. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of wish I just knew every language. Or maybe not I knew every language, but knew like fluently, but at least to like a conversational degree. It'd feel so nice to be able to travel to places and just, you know, actually be able to have proper conversations with locals without forcing them to try and like speak in English just because I can't speak a language. So I always, you know, obviously I think it's always just a golden rule when you're traveling to try and be a good tourist and that sort of thing. And one of the ways I'm trying to do that is that I tried to learn a few phrases in my language. I'll be honest, I could not remember any of the Portuguese phrases. And I didn't look it up before the trip. Which I do regret to a certain extent, but thank you, please, and thank you, and excuse me, tend to be very good starter packs. So I suppose if you need them in Japanese, and you got sumimasen, as excuse me, you got thank you, arigatou gozaimasu. Ooh, I believe this one's fake. Now this one's also fake because it's got a book. I guess I'll buy this one because more statues can be good for decorating. I also think we have both of these. That's not really that big a deal, but we're gonna purchase them anyway. arigato gozaimasu, and onegaishimasu or kudasai, depending on the context for Japanese, I suppose. But I suppose part of it is also kind of endearing. Like, I always imagined that when we went to Japan and we spoken our broken... I spoke my broken Japanese or whatever. Or at least I kind of hope. Maybe, like, it's a bit of, like, of a copium, as they say. They find it kind of endearing. In the first place. Or maybe they don't know. Hello, Sahara. Got anything interesting to tell to us? But you can't really go wrong, I suppose, with learning please, thank you, sorry, excuse me, and hello, goodbye. Thank you especially. You can use thank you for anything. I always just go thank you in bad language, thank you, etc. Just alternate back and forth. Show you're very thankful. I don't know. Perhaps this is sort of my own, I don't say insecurities necessarily, but my own overthinking. Where it's like, oh, you know, being a tourist is such a nuisance. I suppose it very much depends on the person. I went to a university which was often got a lot of tourists. I didn't really find them all that annoying. The only time I really found them annoying, they were just like blocking the way or like standing in the middle of the road. But most of them were fine, is what I'll say. Or perhaps I just have a high tolerance for this sort of thing in the first place. We often did sort of crowd around like the big gates actually to get into the university and that sort of thing, and at which point I'd just be like, it's kind of annoying. Of course, a lot of tourists are Chinese, so sometimes, you know, I get checked being like, hey, are you a tourist? And I'm like, no, I'm a student here, I study here, here's my card, please and thank you. And you know, you go about your day. I can't really blame the security for having to check, I suppose, in the first place, but you know, it is what it is, I suppose, in the end. Yeah, and I don't know, I don't really get annoyed by tourists. I only get annoyed by tourists who do annoying things, obviously. Things like littering, of course, not respecting other people. Not even trying, I suppose, to respect, like, local customs and that sort of thing. Which is something I'm always much more aware of, perhaps. I'm not going to say more than the average person, but perhaps it is. It's a little bit hard to judge those sort of things. But like in Japan, you know, like I looked up a list of like general things that you shouldn't be doing. You know, like you're not meant to really talk much on the train, or at least you keep very quiet. So, you know, conversations are whisper. You don't like eat on the train, from what I recall. Oh, hey, Apollo. Now that's sight for bad eyes, Mountain. How you doing? Been up to anything crazy? Hope so. Just as long as you took care of yourself as you did. As you did it. You only get one body, kiddo. Don't wreck it. Thanks, Polly. Yeah, something like you're not meant to eat and walk. But, you know, a lot of these like social customs sort of things, like people kind of only judge you if you're a local, I'd imagine. But if you're not a local, you know, you kind of get, I'm not going to say you get a free pass, but it's more like people will like raise less of an eyebrow about something, being like, oh, they're a tourist. Not saying that you should go out and do these sort of like social faux pas like at every opportunity. That's not really the message you're taking away, but more like to not stress over those sort of things as much as perhaps as I used to. Because like things like walking and eating, you're not meant to do. In Japan, you're meant to like stop and sit down and eat and then carry on. So which I abide by. But I'd imagine, you know, I'm not gonna speak on behalf of Japanese people, but like if I'm trying to think of what equivalent would be in England, but no, I don't think England social faux pas are nearly quite as high as nearly quite as numerous as Japanese ones necessarily might be. But imagine if I saw someone walking and eating, I'd just kind of be like, if I'm not in my way, I don't really care. Which is, you know, kind of fair. That's kind of just how a lot of things go. Just like, don't be annoying, don't get really in the way, and then you're fine. We got no qualms, that sort of thing. But of course your mileage may vary depending on what you think about tourism and that sort of thing, and, you know, where you live. I suppose it's perhaps because I don't permanently live in an area with many tourists at all. I rarely see any tourists, and perhaps it's less inconvenient. Perhaps if I lived in central London, right? Oh, there you are, Vivian. Oh, there you are, Vivian. Mountain, you away for a spell, weren't you? I confess I was getting a wee bit worried, but you seem fine as a frog's hair. I never heard that phrase before, but frogs don't have hair that I'm aware of. This is where Rach is gonna come in at the end of the episode and correct me and be like, wait, frogs do actually have hair or something, which is fair enough if they do, you know. And then I was just wrong. Oh, I told the lobster. Oh, well, it doesn't really matter. fair enough if I do. But I was not aware of it. If I'm as fine as a frog's hair, in my mind, I'm as fine as non-existent, which is a little bit worrying, if to say the least. But yeah, it's nice to be back. Of course, back to usual Animal Crossing things. All the other videos have been like recorded well in advance and recorded all the way through to like January, so I don't really need to worry about that so much. But for now, we're out of this episode here. So if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscriptions, shares greatly appreciated. Join me Dear Darling Discord. Follow me on Twitter down below. Hope to see each other again. But for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye bye for now.